Welcome to Differentiation 101. Today's session will be an introduction to differentiation and will provide ways to begin the process in your classroom. This presentation will cover the definition of differentiation, how you as the teacher can begin to differentiate learning tasks, and will cover a sampling of differentiation strategies. So what is differentiation? It is good teaching for all learners. Differentiation is the planning of instruction to meet the needs of all learners in the classroom. When you are differentiating, you are thinking about several aspects of a student's learning: their readiness, who they are as a learner, and their interests. You want to design instruction that keeps moving the student forward in their education and keeps the work challenging and engaging. This graphic comes from ASCD and is a great infographic for what differentiation is. I like that necessary for success with standards for a broad range of learners is at the center. It is student-focused, and it is just best practice. It is teaching up. It's an old idea, not something brand new, and it's based on content and student needs. Differentiation is not doing the same thing for all students all the time. Yes, there are times when content will be delivered the same, but not all the time. It isn't just giving students more of the same type of work, and it isn't meant to isolate a student or groups of students. Differentiation should not be something extra, and it is, again, best practice for all students. It should work with the standards. It's not a synonym for group work. And it's not only for your gifted identified students. This can be used with all students. The Alabama Administrative Code explains the need for differentiation with these statements. Gifted students' needs for complexity and accelerated pacing must be accommodated for in general education programs. Accommodations may include strategies such as flexible skills grouping, cluster grouping with differentiation, curriculum compacting, subject and grade acceleration, dual enrollment, and advanced classes. Each LEA must establish and implement a procedure for considering any requests for subject or grade acceleration. The procedures must be approved by the State Department of Education and will be included in the LEA plan for gifted. If you have not seen a copy of your LEA's plan for gifted, then you can request a copy of that from the gifted coordinator, which could be your special education coordinator. Gifted students spend most of their time with a general education teacher, so the gifted specialist and the general education teacher must create a partnership to appropriately meet the needs of these students. The gifted specialist can assist with appropriate strategies and modeling of strategies to assist the general education teacher with differentiation. Each partner brings their level of knowledge for, if you are the gen ed teacher, you know the content standards well. If you are the gifted specialist, then you know the best strategies for your gifted learners and how to best meet their needs. Now we will look at a variety of ways to differentiate learning tasks. Consider the content, process, product, and environment as ways to begin to differentiate for students. Do all students need the same content, or have some already mastered the content? How can you change or adjust how the content will be delivered to the students? How will students be able to show they have learned the content? Will they help design the output or have choice in how they demonstrate their knowledge? How will the environment need to be adjusted to be optimal for the student to learn? When determining how to adjust, you will need to also consider the data that you have for the students, what their preferences are, and what interests do they have. You will need to get to know your students by pre-assessing them on the content, building relationships with them, and using tools to gain insight into their interests and passions. There are many strategies that a teacher can employ when differentiating. This will just be an overview today. There will be more of a deep dive into individual strategies in upcoming webinars. These are some of the options for grouping, differentiation, and acceleration. These strategies are the ones that are outlined in the LEA plan for gifted in the acceleration procedures portion. So you can see the grouping strategies are cluster grouping, flexible skills grouping. Acceleration options for middle and high school include honors and advanced classes, AP, distance learning, and even dual enrollment programs. And then you'll see the differentiation strategies include individualized programs, tiered centers, tiered assignments, compacting and learning contracts, literature and Socratic circles, and independent study projects. As we discuss the strategies today, we will look at them through the lenses of easy to do, a little more challenging, and then challenging but well worth the effort. We will touch on 5 strategies from each of these levels. Let's get started with easy to do. Grouping is especially important in the delivery of content. There will be times when whole group is essential, and then times when you will want to meet with small groups or individuals. By pre-assessing students and looking at previous year data, you can make decisions about the appropriate grouping and what that will look like on a daily basis in your classroom. Don't forget to review, model, and practice procedures for how the students should participate in these groupings. So they're going to need some procedural guidance before you begin, particularly in your individual grouping. Graphic organizers help students organize their thinking, and they can be used to raise the level of thinking. You can pair graphic organizers with other resources to help students get to those higher levels of thinking. Using more complex graphic organizers is also beneficial to add rigor. And you'll notice the triple Venn diagram there would be an example of a higher level graphic organizer. Thinking maps are great to incorporate into lots of different areas. They can go with any subject area, and they can really take students further. Giving students choice in their work is another easy way to differentiate. You can give choice by using RAFT activities. RAFT stands for role, audience, format, and topic. And students choose from those selections. And you'll see some examples here of a RAFT. And this one is looking at space, where the role is the black hole, the audience is the Milky Way galaxy. The format, they're going to create a RAFT, and their topic is going to be using my invisibility cloak. And then you can see other areas where they could do different choices for that RAFT. Tic-tac-toe and menus are another way to give students choice, and there are many ways that you can tailor the tic-tac-toe and menu. For those activities, you could do it by Bloom's taxonomy, you can do it by student interest area, or learning styles. And you can see with tic-tac-toe, it doesn't always have to have 9 activities. You could have 3 activities, or you could have 6 activities. So don't feel like, you have to come up with 9. If it's a content area or subject matter that only you think 6 would be appropriate for, then that's fine, and students would get that choice. As you can see in the menu, you're going to have a topic, and then students would have to choose potentially 1 from the main dish, 1 from a side dish, and 1 dessert. And those would be the activities they would complete. Literature circles are another way to provide choice and allow students to have rigorous discussions. Students can choose from a selection of text. You can incorporate the icons of depth and complexity to take the students deeper into that discussion of the text. Just be sure that students are familiar with those icons of depth and complexity before sending them off to use them on their own within the literature circle. And you want students to start out in very structured roles, and then as they become more comfortable with literature circles, they would move towards shared inquiry, where they don't necessarily have a structured role, but they can all take on those roles interchangeably. By using questioning techniques, you can differentiate learning, task, and discussion. Each of these frameworks, Dimensions of Depth and Complexity, Tony Ryan's Thinker Keys, Webb's Depth of Knowledge, Socratic Questions, and Bloom's Taxonomy, could all be standalone webinars. We do have another webinar on depth and complexity, so you may want to check that one out. That one you can use across all content areas as well as these other ones. Depth and complexity is really a great one to incorporate. So I would encourage you to try that one out, even if you only try a couple of the icons to begin with, and then expand. The next ideas and strategies are a little more challenging to implement, but not hard. Curriculum compacting would be a strategy to use with a small group of students or an individual. You will need to identify what you want the students to know and be able to do, and then if students show mastery of that content before you begin your lesson or unit, then you can make adjustments for those students. Students will more than likely still need some of the skills that will be covered in that unit, and so they would not compact out of those specific skills. A compacting plan would need to be developed that outlines what students have mastered, where they still need practice or additional instruction, and then how will they use their time when they do not need to sit through that content that they've already mastered. This plan that you'll create would be known as the compactor, and we'll talk about that in length in a specific webinar on curriculum compacting. Learning contracts may be utilized when a student is compacting out of specific content. That's not the only time you could use a learning contract, but they work well when students are compacting. The learning contract explains what the student will be doing, what they will use to accomplish the task, and guidelines they will follow when they're completing the contract. This is an agreement basically between the student and the teacher. It helps the teacher with time management. It helps the students with time management. It helps the teacher manage the group work and the individual work. And it can also be used to support students with learning difficulties. It helps them stay on track with what they are supposed to be doing and how to do it. It really gives them those executive skills that they sometimes struggle with. Learning stations are an effective way to provide instruction in a student-centered format. These are just a few examples of activities that could be part of a learning center. The students should be able to interact with that learning station without needing assistance from the teacher to check their work. Of course, the teacher will want to introduce these learning stations to students, explain how to use the learning station, and then have students interact with it on their own. You could use QR codes to post around the room that have the answers so students can self-check and be able to do that on their own. You could have off grade level or advanced instructional materials in these centers. They can be tiered. They can be continuous progress. And they could also be open unit activities for the students. So lots of variety can be incorporated into the learning station. Open-ended assignments allow for student choice and creativity. The student plays an important part of designing the task that they will complete. Again, you can incorporate questioning and critical thinking to help extend that student thinking and allow them to go deeper into the content. There won't necessarily be one right outcome. There'll be multiple outcomes, multiple responses from students. It extends their thinking by asking probing questions and follow-up questions as they work through the assignment. Again, you can use Bloom's questioning and depth and complexity to increase the rigor there. These last few ideas for differentiation are the most challenging, but you will definitely see value in incorporating these strategies into your classroom. Independent projects and research may seem a little messy at times, but it will allow students to pursue an interest area that may not be covered in the general education curriculum. These investigations may result from a spark of curiosity in the general education content. So you could use these activities as an anchor activity that students can work on when they're compacting or if they finish work early. The project should be carefully planned. There should be clear expectations and outcomes. They may take on the form of a passion project. Students should be able to share the information they learn with an authentic audience. The students should answer what, so what, and now what as they work through those independent projects. There's a shared responsibility between the student and the teacher. The student is completing the work with check-ins by the teacher and any help along the way by the teacher. And then the student can design the project completely, and they can design what outcome they want to get from completing that project or research. Tiered assignments take some planning to implement. You may tier assignments by content, process, or product. As you're planning a lesson, you will determine what to be adjusted in the activity. Maybe you just adjust the level of a text, or you could adjust the task or outcome. You could also adjust the way a student will complete the task. So no matter what the level, the assignment should be engaging and meaningful. It's helpful to begin with the average level, and then you can adjust the assignment down or up depending on your students. The number of tiers that you have will also depend on the learners in your classroom. So you don't always have to have 3 tiers. You may only have 2 tiers for your particular activity or assignment. Problem-based learning is worth the effort, a little more time-consuming than some of the other strategies. The teacher really becomes a guide on the side as the students are investigating real-world problems. The teacher will need to have check-ins with students and help students with the collaboration and communication piece, because that is very important to this type of learning. The students have to be very reflective. They have to be willing to work together, and they should be able to make decisions based on reasoning and defend those decisions. And the activity should motivate students to seek that deeper understanding and want to find out why. There are 3 resources listed here for you: the Buck Institute for Education, or BIE. The University of Delaware has lots of PBL resources, and then open educational resources. They have some PBLs that are already developed that you can just take and implement with your students. You may can find one that fits with a specific area of study that you're going to be working on. You will get a chance to get a copy or view these slides, so you'll be able to go back and click on these links and explore those resources. So these are the resources that were used to develop this presentation. A few of the resources have stars beside them, and those were resources that were previously purchased by the State Department for all LEAs. So you should have Advancing Differentiation by Richard Cash on hand, and you should have Differentiated Activities and Assessment using the Common Core standards. And those can be adjusted for Alabama standards. The other books here that we used were Differentiation for Gifted Learners, which is a great one by Richard Cash and Diane Heacock. And then Differentiation, Simplified, Realistic, and Effective is a great resource from Bertie Kingor. And Differentiating Instruction, Best Practices for the Classroom by Julia Roberts and Tracy Inman is also great. All of these are great resources to use. The Differentiating Instruction in a Whole Group Setting by Betty Hollis is more for 4-8, where some of these others are more across the board, K and up. So I encourage you to explore some of these resources, and you can find out more about the strategies that were mentioned in this presentation in these. So here's the QR code. Feel free to scan the QR code, and you'll be able to view the slides. You won't be able to copy them, but you can go back and view them. You can also replay this recording and pause as needed if you want to go back and learn a little bit about each of the strategies. And there's lots of information on the web about these strategies, so I encourage you pick a few strategies, try them out, see how they go. Work with your gifted specialist to help you implement the strategies. If you're not sure about how that would look in your classroom, maybe they can come in and model that strategy for you, or they could do a video and share that with you. So just be sure that you're using your gifted specialist to help you when you're trying to differentiate. And for gifted specialists, make sure you're working with your gen ed teachers to share these strategies with them and support them as they work through differentiation in their classrooms. So I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. If you have any questions, you can find me at ehurst@alsde.edu. And again, we will have more webinars that we will be uploading, and so I encourage you to check those out as well. And some of those will go into more in-depth about some of the strategies that were mentioned in this presentation today. Thank you.